Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. I was just waiting for Michael. I just sent him a link in case you couldn't find the link. So, so today we've got Kaka. I'm going to give it in the order that everybody's presenting. Kaka, Anita, Fabiola, Kara, Karen, Kim, and last but not least, Martin is going to end. We're going to end with him. So, oh, I see Stephanie. So that's good. So I think we'll get started, and hopefully Michael can join us soon.
Michael's coming.
Okay, good.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so Kaka, do you want to start us off, please?
Hi, everybody. I will just put a timer for me. And Safora, can I be co-host so I can share my screen, please?
Okay.
Okay. So, the work I'm proposing is partly written. I want to write a text, an article that I hope will be part of my PhD thesis about the core question for me that is being grievability, mourning, grieving, and inside the perspective of the nonviolence view and horizons in relation to gender violence. And also I want to send a link of for all of you, if possible, but mainly for Safora and Michael and Meta, a link to a video on YouTube with subtitles in English of a performance that I created, that I am creating because it's still in process each time I present around this topic, gender violence. And the performance mix music, sound, so cello, voice, spoken voice and sung voice, and also there are elements of colors, light, and also movement in the area of the performance. And so I will begin to share my screen. Just a minute here. Okay. So the performance is called Entangled Medusa. How to Forget, but How to Remember. And it's an autobiographical performance in a way. And at the same time, it's a very collective performance because these are stories that are present in the performance that each time I present the performance, I hear other people, mainly women, but also some men or young non-binary people calling me after the performance to say that they know very well the scenes I performance there. And so share screen. Okay. So are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
So I begin the performance with this kind of scene in which I am hidden, and I present it in everywhere before the pandemic. Sometimes in theaters and things like that, but mainly other times like this is in the downtown. It was in a strike of the 8M feminist movement. I was in the street in front of the bus station, and from this scene, I usually move to one in which I present Medusa's story, and then, like her, in the ground, I walk to another moment. I'm resuming in a very short way here to say that I move to another moment of connection between Medusa's story and many of the actual stories that are still happening again and again and again. And what is calling my attention is that from this moment forward, there's a morning scene with singing, voice, and the cello. And I was noticing for very long time that this was a very transformative moment for myself in my healing process. But I was always noticing that this was also a transformative moment with the public, with the people, whoever they were, men, women, non-binary people from other classes, genders, races, this morning moment. And from this morning moment, many things changed, but in a very subtle and sensitive way, like in the voice. There's no happy end, but there's a kind of different point in the end. And I was always opening circles of listening and expression, free listening and free expression for whoever want to speak anything after the performance. And most people generally stay to speak and to listen. And I was always very surprised because I was creating this in the year Bolsonaro was elected president here, and he's very misogynist and sexist. So I was like waiting to be attacked and to be very harshly criticized. And this never happened. And what I noticed was that people entered with me in a kind of morning circle, like let's hold this morning together. And many times some men said to me in the end of the performance, sometimes in public for all the circle, thanks for doing that, because doing that I recognize it. I already did it. And now I want to, my time, finish it. Okay, so together with these very surprising for me reactions of men, mainly, there was always very moving reactions from women, like saying things like, thanks for doing that, because now I know it was not only with me. Now, this was an important moment for me to realize I was not crazy. And also I found some resistance from people in the feminist movements against the pain, against the sadness, against the mourning, against the grieving. Like many women were like saying to me, asking for me, like, why so much pain? Why do you have to show that? And I was in the beginning very afraid and saying, sorry, I'm doing this also for myself, and I need to be true to myself, and I'm not in a place where I'm very happy in relation to what happened. And I'm also not in a place where I want to kill people that did it. I'm in a place of mourning, and that's where I am. And so finding meta, trying to close, and finding this course, mainly the feminist and alternative cosmologies invitation, I was like, oh, maybe if I plant my roots in the nonviolence horizon and perspective, because I was already practicing a lot nonviolent communication, but I really want to be very honest. This course has been amazing and very important to me to teach me that nonviolence is much, 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 much bigger than nonviolent communication. And I'm very green in nonviolence, I guess. And so here, I guess I'm finding the soil to stand and to say, maybe, as an hypothesis, mourning together and grieving together can be a way to have conversations about that. And not only to have conversations, but to feel together. What is that? And maybe feeling together, we can move ourselves to different places. It doesn't matter if we suffered more or perpetrated more, I don't know. So sorry for the time. And thanks for everybody, Meta, Sephora, Michael, this amazing group, and open to listen from you.
That's an absolutely amazing project, Kaka. It's like, I know we spoke about it already, but now you're presenting it with the slides. So I'd love to see actually the performance. So the performance, yeah. And can you speak a little bit about how this is part of your larger dissertation project, and also how are you going to tie it into the transformative aspect of nonviolence? How will you make the turn? Or maybe you don't know yet and you're still exploring that. That's fine also, but just sort of a little bit of what you're thinking the connection might be.
Okay, thanks for the questions. I will try to reflect now. I guess my dream is that this text will be the seed of the main chapter of my PhD dissertation thesis, because when I began, the project was very different. I was very dedicated to Brazilian women composers that wrote for the cello, and I wanted to create a performance with their pieces and a very like traditional dissertation, like historical dissertation about these Brazilian women composers. But I was very blocked with the cello, that is my soulmate in life. Because of the traumas I was carrying about the violences I had suffered inside the music world. And this is very important to mention here, because the trauma was blocking me directly with my soul expression. And then I went in a journey to trying to heal myself, and the performance was like being born. But I had many problems because the artistic part was not recognized. So now I can say my thesis is about this performance, but not about this performance. The main point that I want to bring, like when I question myself, what might be my contribution to the world, I guess it would be that how this performance and the dozens of presentations and conversations with people showed me how collective mourning, collective grieving can offer dialogue spaces and sensitive spaces to hold even difficult questions. And so the mourning and grieving chapter, my dream is that will be the center, the core of the dissertation, not the performance, but the mourning. And like, sorry, I forgot to mention, yeah, mainly now, based on Butler and Lila Fernandez and yeah, and two other authors that are Brazilian, Carla Rodrigues and Tatiana Salem Levy. And so this would be the connection between the final work and my dissertation thesis. And for me, it is the most difficult one because I'm very afraid. I'm very insecure of like writing this and standing for these ideas. Although I know they make sense for me, I'm afraid of the critics. And the other question was, I forgot, sorry. So
No problem. Yeah, I was just asking you to think about, and you don't have to answer that yet, because Michael and Stephanie.
The non-violence.
Yeah, the transformation. What are you thinking? Like, just yeah.
Okay, I will try to formulate here. Maybe I will say it wrong. So what I'm thinking is departing from the core perspective that nonviolence brings about humanization, and working to dismantle dehumanization, or working not against, but I am understand that nonviolence is trying to help us to reconnect, to stop dehumanization. And the link I am trying to build is that when we are able to mourn together, to feel together the pain in this case, even if it's not our own pain, there's some humanization that happens between different people. But maybe this is very superficial.
No, that's absolutely fine starting place. to explore this question. And yeah, so I think Michael and then Stephanie, I think that was the order. I'm not sure. With your hands up. You're muted, Michael, you're muted.
Thank you. Kaka, I imagine you can read French without too much trouble.
With Google Translate helping me, yes.
This is an old piece of work, but it's been kind of fundamental for some people. It's by a man named Marcel Jousse, Jousse, and he was talking about indigenous people, and I'm not sure where, but he talked about how when there's a death, for example, in the community, how they grieve together, and they're not only grieving together, but they're grieving in formulaic ways. There's this regular, they're not spontaneously outpouring, it's put in the boxes, if you will, of traditional formulas. And it has some pretty good psychological insights there that would be a terrific constraint for us. You know, we want to be very individual, expressed in our own particular way, but for them it was the community aspect of it that really reached them emotionally. So again, his name is Marcel Jousse, Jousse, and I'll see if I can find a reference to it and send it to you later in an email, but you might be able to track it down.
Thank you so much, Michael. Is he an anthropologist?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
I guess is it the name that I wrote in the chat?
Let me take a look. Yes, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank you so much for talking about this communitarian aspect, because it was not in my first attention. Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's very foreign to our way of thinking, but it was emotionally powerful.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, hi.
Hi,
I think that was
Stephanie.
so it's very, very interesting, and you're really planting some seeds that when you really think about them seem very powerful. So thank you for just even the vulnerability of what you're doing. And so some resources that I guess I'd agree with Michael's approach as well. I lived in an indigenous community in West Africa, and it's true when there was a death or something to grieve in village. There were, like in West Africa, there are the crieuses and the women that come together to cry for the dead, and to mourn, and there is a ritual aspect to it, but it's so necessary too. So I think that you'll find a lot going down that route that could be very interesting and help support what you're doing. And then in the world of nonviolence, I'm gonna also put a link in the chat. There's some friends up in Rochester, New York from the Gandhi Institute, and they're starting to host an online grief circle. And so this is a nonviolence organization, addressing the question and the power of grief together and grieving together. So I'm going to put that link there in case that helps your research in any way, in terms of participating in sharing grief. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you so much. And listening to you now and connecting to what Michael said, I realized that I want to thank you so much. Like coming back to Safara's questions, I realized that maybe grieving and mourning collectively also remembers us of our vulnerability, of our shared vulnerable condition, and maybe I can deep with nonviolence on that. I don't know. Thanks so much.
Yeah, there's actually one more thing that I remembered that is it's a saying that says joy shared is doubled and grief shared is halved. And so in a way too, I think about when we share grief, it's like we're all, helping to lessen the effect of the grief, the negative effect of the grief on each other.
Yes.
In,
Wow. Yes.
in fact, I have a theory about that. And the theory is that when we're plunged into grief, we're being plunged into ourself and losing our awareness of others. And so the benefit of collective mourning, one of the benefits of it is that it gets you out of that isolation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think about that a lot, Kaka. That's what I came up with.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I actually just recently had a very personal experience of this because there was a tragedy in my life some years ago, and I grieved when it happened, and I thought that was it. But for various reasons, it came up again, and I had to talk about it with a friend, and I found a lot more catharsis getting it off my chest and talking to.
Wow.
Yeah, catharsis, that's the key idea. And catharsis actually in Greek means purification.
Thanks so much.
Any other suggestions for Kaka before we move on? We have gone over time, so if there are any brief suggestions. Kaka, that's wonderful. I'm so looking forward to and for everybody, of course, we are there also along the process. So you don't, if at any point you want to sort of discuss something or do feel free to reach out. Yeah. So, okay, so we'll move on now to Anita.
Thank you, Kaka. Thank you, Sephora. I was wondering if I can be made co-host so I can share my presentation.
Sure. Okay.
So is that visible? Thank you. So a little background about me. I have some experience with NVC. I'm trained in Buddhist chaplaincy, which is the main thing that I do. I've also have some training in Western psychotherapy and how it works mostly with Buddhist philosophy. And I also teach mindfulness. And for the last about 3-4 years, my main activity has been teaching and administrating in the local jail. I'm one of the 3 Buddhist jail chaplains. And I've also recently started doing end-of-life care at a Buddhist hospice center. And in parallel with these works, which is sort of more on the religious side, I also do research. I've done research at a couple of universities in the Bay Area, as well as one in Germany. And the type of research that I have participated in and written about is about bringing Indic philosophies to the Western world, adapting it in a way that I'm hoping is skillful and also stays classical. And so that is my goal when I try to straddle the world of Buddhism, Indic philosophies, and bringing those philosophies into a different time and a different culture than in what it was developed in. A few months ago, I was asked, actually it's now more than a few months, I was asked by Nalanda University, Nalanda Institute, which is an institute based in New York City, to develop a and let me give a little bit of background about Nalanda Institute. Nalanda Institute is actually based on Nalanda University, which was a university in India. And their flagship program is contemplative psychotherapy. And it mostly trains mental health providers who are interested in bringing mostly Buddhist philosophies, practices, meditations into their therapeutic practice. And so we spend a year learning mindfulness, both from a philosophy perspective, from a meditation perspective, as well as mindfulness-based therapies. And then the second year, we spend learning compassion-based practices and meditations, as well as Vajrayana, which is sometimes referred to as Tantra. And so some months ago, I was asked to create a third year for this flagship program that focuses on a compassionate and wise intervention to oppression based on race and caste. And the components of this third year elective, which will be a 6-month program, are about understanding the oppression based on social identity, like caste and race. And then religious philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, as well as Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta, and meditations that I'm going to focus on, and academic research referring to it. And as I was putting this together, one of the things that I was already aware of this in my life, but I was beginning to, as I was putting this together, I was particularly aware of it for the first time as I was going to teach this material, how much I wanted to bring nonviolence into the picture. And I really didn't know enough about nonviolence to bring it in, to understand how can I bring nonviolence into understanding the material, holding the emotions that come up when understanding it, and also bringing that into the interventions. Most of the students in the programs are therapists, psychotherapists, but there are also people like me who are chaplains and social workers. So in those interventions, how can we bring nonviolence? And I was not in a position to do that because I didn't know enough about nonviolence, which is why I was very excited to see this program. And so my project, what I want to do is, to the framework, the 6-month framework that I'm creating for this elective, I want to include readings on nonviolence to understand the social identity of caste and race and similar such structures in different cultures. How do we understand it? What is the purpose behind it? How can we identify it, become more mindful of it, hold it with wisdom and compassion, and start dismantling it? And the two things that I would like to, two criteria for including readings is for it to be cheaply and easily available material. And I particularly am interested in authors who come from some of these disenfranchised communities. Additionally, I'm wanting to actually measure the effectiveness of such a course. And so there's a professor at Stanford University who actually researches the psychological basis of race and how to dismantle them. And so we're going to come up with a scale to so that we can measure if there is any effect on identifying and dismantling it. What I would like to do in addition is actually to see if there is a scale that already exists to measure the effect of the program on our capacity for nonviolence. I don't know if such a scale exists, and I would really like to use that if it exists. And if I can, I'd also like to find some guest teachers who are willing and available to record maybe individual classes. Yeah, that's my project, and I'm happy to hear feedback, thoughts.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you. That's. I just wanted to clarify. So, for your project, you're both wanting to create a syllabus, and you are also researching something quantitative as far as the psychology of the effectiveness of nonviolence. And the third component is to identify guest speakers. Is that?
Yeah, and the two are the last two are a little bit of a stretch. I'm wanting to see if there is a scale that I can use so that as students progress through the class, they can start measuring their response. So we'd give them like a questionnaire at the end of every week or every 2 weeks. They would record their answers, and we'd see if the capacity for nonviolence is increasing every week or every month through the course.
Right. The syllabus is the connection. I'm just trying to clarify. I'm sorry, I haven't got input yet. Just let me clarify. The syllabus is connecting race, caste, and nonviolence, right? So that's
exactly, yes. Yeah. Because, for me, there is the academic aspect of understanding social identity and how it's created, the reasons it's created, the suffering it creates, how can we identify and dismantle it. I'm wanting to hold that with nonviolence so that as we understand the academic aspects of it, we can also relate to it in a way that doesn't add to the suffering, that actually reduces the suffering. And so while I have the background around, I have some of the syllabus around, the understanding the social structure, I'm wanting the environment to be one of nonviolence so that it doesn't add suffering on top of suffering.
Right. So when you're talking about systemic, the systems or the structures that create racism and include casteism, you're not just analyzing the violence, the intersections of violence, but also how to come out of it, right? So how to transform it, come out of it, and not allow is maybe not the right word, but how to empower your students not to be affected by an analysis of violence, right? So those are all sort of key components of
exactly
creating a syllabus that you want to say here it is, but then you also want to say, well, that's not it. That's not all of it, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that's great. And of course you can, some of the stuff that we're teaching also does that. So, trying to identify the systems and structures. So you're welcome to use those. And for the caste, I would urge you to read Ambedkar's text if you haven't already. That's sort of a classic on caste system, and it's actually very critical of Gandhi. So it's a very interesting kind of take on why Ambedkar was critical of Gandhi. So I would urge you to read that if you haven't.
Oh yes, I do have some material, and I would love to if yeah, I would love to maybe share with you what I have, and if you have some further suggestions or some specifics, I would really appreciate
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Anita. This is very, very interesting and would be, I think, extremely useful. I have just put a link, not a link, but a reference to one of my favorite articles on anything, but it happens to be on racial stereotyping and neuroscience approach by two women at Princeton. And it's a very important study that I think should get much more attention. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead and look at that link. It's in a journal called Psychological Science. Yeah, there it is. Back in 2005. And it's called Controlling Racial Prejudice, Social Cognitive Goals Affect Amygdala and Stereotype Activation. So I think you'll find it very interesting.
Well, that's fascinating. Thank you so much, Michael.
Any other suggestions for Anita? I think Ayatakshi put the name of the book in there. It's called Annihilation of Caste, Ambedkar's book. And I'm sure you can download it from Library Genesis for free.
I actually have that, yes, already. Thank you so much. I was also wondering if I could specifically put a request out there that if anybody comes across a scale which has been shown to, measure the capacity for nonviolence, that would be very helpful. I do have some other references, but not something that directly measures our capacity for nonviolence. So if that happens, if you come across it, please, I would appreciate knowing about it.
Ayatakshi?
I want to tell about the scale. There is a scale by Vinod Kool and I think Manisha Kumar. So, I mean, that is a scale with a very good psychometric property. So one can use that to measure nonviolence.
That's wonderful. Vinod, can you tell me his last name? Spell his last name.
I'll email. It's Kool, Kool.
Okay, thank you so much. And if you do find it, if you can email it to me, I'd appreciate it so much.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, thank you so much, Anita, and look forward to reading your syllabus, because that's sort of my area of what I would, my just one suggestion would be not to be too focused on quantitative kind of measurements. Perhaps qualitative ones would work just as well, because you'll see how towards the end of the course, people, how they've changed on a personal level. So that measure, I think, is as good maybe as a quantitative one as well. So
thank you, Sakura.
Okay, so we're going to Fabiola next.
Okay. Yes. Okay, is everyone able to see me? And could you please enable co-hosting so that I can later will look at my screen?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So my project idea is to do a blog, and hopefully this blog will be ongoing and continuous, but not just the one thing that I started, but sorry, I'm a little nervous. So my idea is this is a little bit old school. I don't know how well you can see this, but I made a diagram here with 4 different circles, and maybe it's super hard to see, so I'll just describe them. One at the top here is spirituality.
Fabiola, if you share your screen, then I think we'll see you, or maybe if you go to speaker setting, we'll see you better or something. Let me see. I think that'll do. Okay, yeah, speaker setting is fine.
Speaker setting?
Everybody can do that on their own. Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. So where was I? So, okay, basically I'd like to write a blog, and each post would be about a different plant or animal that's local and native to my region, Southern California, well, all of California for the abalone. But anyway, and so I would start off with the abalone, and I don't know why I'm so nervous, but okay, I'll try again here with the chart. So here we have 4 circles. At the top, it would incorporate spirituality. And over here we have earth and land. Over here we have Gandhian economics. And over here we have media and art. So different art forms. Okay, so I'll share why I chose the abalone and why the abalone is important to me, and the story of the abalone. So basically the abalone in the Yurok is in Northern California, so Yurok tradition is, I brought an abalone here so we can look at it. This is the shell, not the animal. So it's a symbol of feminine strength and but also pain. So a really brief version of the story, and there's 2 different stories that I've found. So one is that abalone woman and Dentalian man lived far apart. They met each other. They were planned to get married. Dentalian man didn't recognize abalone woman as his wife, and therefore neglected her and ignored her and treated her poorly. So she left and ran away. And as she was running away, Dentalian man felt disrespected. So he chased her with a flint knife, stabbed her, and her blood is represented. In order to protect herself, she transformed herself into an abalone. So this would be her blood. And on the inside would be her tears. But it also represents the strength and courage she had to form to protect herself. And then inside it's her beauty. So that's one version of the story. The other version of the story that I've heard is along the same lines of, so abalone woman was married to Dentalian man. Dentalian man was verbally abusive, physically abusive, and she ran away. But this time she ran away and ran across rocks, and that cut her feet. And so as she was running and it cut her feet, she left blood marks. And the blood marks is the outside and her teardrops is the inside. So why is this story important to me and why did it touch me? Basically, I was living in a Buddhist monastery the past 4 years, a year ago now. And somehow, even before I knew of the story, I felt connected to the spirit of the abalone. And it might sound woo-woo, but I was having dreams about the abalone, and I got really obsessed about the abalone. And I also was in an environment that was actually not healthy. So I had to like find that inner strength to leave. And it was probably the hardest thing I've done in my life. And so after leaving the monastery, then I heard about the story and I related, and I felt like it needed to be shared, just because it was like a healing story for me to hear, to know that it's, and also like a teaching story to know about that inner strength. So in order to pay homage back to the abalone, I want to write this blog, and also to other plants and animals of my region. So, okay, we can go to screen sharing. And I don't know how much time I have left, but I'll kind of go through it quickly. Do I have to press something? Oh yeah, share screen. There we go. Okay, so I made this flow chart, which was kind of my the thinking about the blog and kind of how I got here. So we can go through this one first. So this is kind of like the violent framework, which we're all very familiar with, the patriarchal world culture, which goes into religion and science, which then forms this idea of separation from nature and scarcity. And we have all those quotes from these guys, Boyle, Bacon, Hobbes, and Locke, which were quoted in Vandana Shiva's lecture of Empire of Man Over Nature, and also in the podcast with Michael Allen, which is so interesting. And I'm excited to finish listening to it. I haven't finished. And then that flows over into colonialism, capitalism, racism, which created like a historical amnesia, which which was like the loss of indigenous ethnobotanical knowledge and wisdom. And all of this led to what we've seen the past 100 years, or maybe more, overfishing, habitat loss, and climate change. And then we go forgetting the abalone thing. Okay, and then we can go over to the right side, and this is the medicine that I propose, and the nonviolent framework. So what is this? Remembering, uncovering, walking in the direction of an alternate cosmology. Yeah, so my idea is to start with the abalone, but then maybe the oak tree and maybe other plants and animals to kind of build a cosmology very, very slowly, one by one. Not that I'm rebuilding anything new, just kind of putting it together. So here's an attempt to balance masculine and feminine, starting with feminine spirituality, indigenous creation, teaching stories, and wisdom. And the idea here of nature as sufficient, which comes from Gandhi, but so awesome to know that Gandhi's ideas and indigenous teachings overlap, basically, very similar. So we have examples from Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, The Three Sisters, the beans, squash, and corn, that each have their gifts and enhance each other. And the example of sweetgrass, that plants and animals can actually benefit from human relation and contact. So, and here's from the book Original Instructions, which was also mentioned in Braiding Sweetgrass, which is reciprocal obligation, which I feel like goes so well with the Gandhian idea of morality and duty in terms of economics, like more like an obligation. And then we talked about debt with Elizabeth, and I feel like we took so much, so we have a debt to pay back. And yeah, here are some references. And I really love the quote when I started reading about cow protection. I really love the quote that I will briefly read for you from Gandhi that says, "My ambition is no less them to see the principle of cow protection established throughout the world, but that requires that I should set my house in order first. So I feel like that's really relevant because obviously the abalone is not the cow, but that level of respect for animals, I feel like I want to set my house in order first, and that's kind of what I hope to do through art. So like a video, or oh yeah, I didn't share my media projects yet, but we'll see. So the first post of this blog would be called Remember the Abalone, and I have ideas for interviews of the storytellers and Kumeyaay elders. Kumeyaay are the people who lived here in San Diego, colonial name San Diego. I also have an idea for an embroidery patchwork to put on the blog. This is one of the oak tree, but I can make one of the abalone too. And I have some pictures here that we can see the sad overfishing that we had. This is 1903. You can see how much abundance of abalone and how much was taken. We have some more sad pictures like that. And here's abundance of live abalone in 1983 in Santa Rosa Island, just to see like how much it is. And nowadays, cannot see anything like that. Okay, so the last thing was, let's stop sharing. How can we do that? Sorry, I'm really not good with Zoom. Does anyone know how to stop sharing?
I think it should be the same place where you do the share screen. Shouldn't that also give you the option of stop, or maybe up on your screen where the green?
Up at the top, there's a red box that says stop share sometimes.
Stop recording? No. Resume share, new share. Oh, well. Let's see.
If you close your.
Oh, I can do it. Hold on. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, that basically, yeah. So I would basically express all that through writing on the blog. A video, which I thought would include kind of like a personal prayer ceremony to the ocean, something like that in a video. And writing watercolor, we have nice watercolor over here that my friend did. Yeah, and I did have one question that I wanted to ask everyone, which is, I want to make sure that this is not cultural appropriation. So if anyone has an idea of how to go about that so that it doesn't become that, and more like a fusion of my own experiences and understanding Gandhian economics and yeah, indigenous stories. Thank you all for listening, and I'm excited to hear all of your feedback and suggestions.
Thank you, Fabiola. That's wonderful. I have a suggestion about perhaps if you could get maybe an indigenous person telling the story of the abalone. That way, it's their voice. Maybe that's also a video that's up on your, so that everybody can just look at that like a short. And that way, your interpretations are separate from the story told by, somebody. I'm sure it's an oral story, so there are probably different versions of it. Not that there's just one version of it, but that might be one way to go about it. Stephanie?
So I think it's very creative, centering it around the abalone shell, and that it's deeply spiritual because it's coming from within you. You were having dreams about it. It has to do with your own sense of finding courage and freedom. The story of the abalone shell is extremely symbolic, and there's a lot you can take from it. And so did I understand correctly that are you talking about a blog post, one blog post? And I feel like there's a series of posts here. Like, I'm actually seeing in my mind as an example to draw from would be like a book of poetry where, you look at the abalone shell from, 15 angles, or some kind of symbolic number. And in each time you tell a different, you look at it differently, but it's all one, and so I think that one blog post could be great, but I just wanted to suggest possibly thinking about a variety that then you could turn into a little booklet, a pamphlet, a book, a video blog series, whatever it is, but it could be more than one.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I just really look forward to seeing this, Fabiola. The creativity of it seems to me to be completely appropriate to the subject. And I just wanted to say that, I'm reasonably sensitive to cultural appropriation, having really disliked it when I came across it with cultures that I've studied over the years. And it didn't raise any flags for me. You're just, here's a story told by these people. It's not like you're pretending it's your story or anything. Yes, so I think this is all to the good that we get to pool one another's cultural experiences. This is, part of, I think, what we have to do for a viable future. So green light.
Okay, thank you.
I think you thought it would be a series of blog posts, right? Or am I not? I think, was that your idea? Or?
Yeah, originally I thought a series of blog posts, but different animals or plants focuses. But I really like Stephanie's suggestion of doing like a series of the abalone, like focusing, and that way I can go more in depth, and it's not just like one post and then it's done. But
Yeah.
it can be yeah, looking at it from different angles. Like it could be a video, then writing, or different things. So I really like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a really
A
nice idea.
spiral.
Yeah. But also I'd like to say that because you've got the two aspects, like you're presenting the problem and the medicine, to have those together and not to separate them. So present, the problem, then the medicine, and so not just one or the other kind of. So what is the medicine for, and the problem, so that we are aware of it, but not that we're stuck in it, kind of thing. So yeah, Michael.
That's great.
For what it's worth, and it may be absolutely nothing, there is a tradition of poetry where you take different animals and write a poem on each one. Maybe one of the most famous examples is the German poet Rilke. Rainer Maria Rilke. He wrote a poem called, a collection called Dinggedichte, which means poems on things. And he wrote one about the panther, a caged panther, and so forth. But there's a long tradition going back to Middle England, Middle English, Middle Ages, of doing. It's like you would do poems on the zodiac or poems on animals, and often the zodiac is, symbols of animals. So it's not like you have to familiarize yourself with it or anything, but I just thought it might be helpful to know that you were in a long human tradition there.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll definitely look into it so I can know.
Great. Thank you so much, Fabiola. Good luck with that. It looks like wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I hope I can share and ask for more guidance later on.
Okay, so we've got Kara. Are you ready to go? Kara's got a really interesting project too.
Hello.
Yeah.
So I sent my proposal out because I just thought of this idea a couple days ago, and so it's not completely clear in my head. But so, you know, this wonderful class exposed us to so much great reading that I actually kind of got lost in it, you know, but because Sephora kept emphasizing, you know, reading the quotations and citations, I think that helped me honor the fact that this short quote from A Door into Ocean just kept ringing in my head. The one, when Valens see our eyes in the ocean of their own, that moment of recognition. And I remembered then how I was also very touched by Judith Butler when she said, you know, if we take the boundary to be, you know, the threshold of a person, and the body is threshold to the world. And I was like, oh yeah, these ideas are kind of connected. And then I realized some of my favorite quotes from Transforming Feminist Practice, when she talks about, Fernandez talks about that spirituality is a process in which all dichotomies and distinctions begin to break down, so there is no separation between self and world. And then I just happened to pick up this book about phenomenology that I used to read like 20 years ago, right? And I saw this quote in it about, so this is, you know, people talking about the work of Merleau-Ponty, that French phenomenologist guy. And the quote, "My eye is for me a certain power of making contact with things, not a screen." And it was like, I kind of had this aha moment. Oh, wow. You know, they're all trying to talk about this moment of contact, a moment of encounter, a moment of recognition. And they're talking about this. So Milan, and that's why I like that quote so much. When Valens see their eyes in our ocean of our own, because that in itself, so I can't explain what this idea of applying phenomenology. It's kind of this dense, difficult thing to talk about, especially since I haven't read much in it recently. But that quote is actually like a nutshell of phenomenology, because it's a philosophy of the importance of human perception, using all of our senses and looking at the body as the vehicle, the means, the organ through which our thoughts are created, right? And also, when in that same quote, you know, our eyes, when the Valens see our eyes in the ocean of our own, that's also Merleau-Ponty, because he is the philosopher that kind of it's all about depth. So the idea, so anyway, so I'm like, oh wow, okay, I got to put this stuff together. I got to figure out how to talk about. And the reason this idea is important, this moment of encounter is so important to me too personally, is because, well, our country, right? We're not listening to each other, and I actually, but see, I'm not an academic right now at all. I'm pretty much a housewife and a farmhand, really. It's like I'm washing dishes all the time, taking care of my family, my elderly mother, my mother-in-law, gardening, canning, drying, blah, 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 blah. So I'm intimidated. I'm excited and intimidated, right? So, but, you know, the question, like I'm thinking about like how, so I'm gonna try to look, oh, okay. Oh, but I'm also an activist. Yeah, I'm an activist in my community. as a peace activist, environmental activist, and I used to do mediation work. And this is the idea I had 20 years ago when I was trying to do a master's degree. I wanted to focus on this idea. So, because look, if we can use this phenomenology, is this making sense at all? Is anybody following me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll continue. As the silence always kills me. Anyway, so what phenomenology can help us do is like, it helps us kind of like piece by piece talk about what's happening at, in this really interesting connected way. And then like, so is it a spiritual experience, that encounter? Fernandez helps us think about these moments as both really practical. She says like mundane and sacred at the same time. So Merleau-Ponty can help us, I think, with that. So that's what I'm interested in doing these readings. And I'm not going this is not a thesis project. This is not an academic paper. I forgot how to do footnotes. I don't know how to do that. But I want to try to write it up, and maybe I could do an article or give a presentation. Maybe it's an article for, I don't know why yet. Maybe directed at mediators, maybe community dialogue people. I know some of those people here locally. I could even, but it's because I'm scared of doing that, because I haven't written much lately. I'm scared of that. So that's why Ruth's project about the calendar with the images, I thought, oh, wait a minute. Because, so my son, I sent a link to his work. He actually spent the last almost 2 years in China. So we were working together on climate change murals, and he went off to China before COVID, and he just got back a couple months ago. And so, so this is a chance for us to work together on murals again. And so I'm going to now do some screen sharing to show you how to introduce. So I want to do some writing, but also have this, this is the idea. How do you communicate these ideas about the spiritual nature of the encounter and recognition in an art piece, and how does that relate to our climate crisis? Who knows? But so let's try to do this share. I have never done this before either. So let's see. Can you share your screen with me, Sephora?
Okay. You can share now.
Can you see anything yet? No.
You have to press that green button at the bottom, share screen.
Not working yet? Oh, damn me. Oh, there it is. Do you see anything now?
Yeah.
So, so this is this is May 2019. So you guys probably might have heard about the group here in Oregon, a group of youth, our Children's Trust, has been suing the government that the US government needs to protect the atmosphere as a basic right. And so we have been working with them for a while. And so because it was supposed to go to trial that year, we came up with the idea of creating a mural about the crisis of climate change. So this was our first, and again, when he comes to town, it's like, oh, quick, we got to do so. It's like anyway. So this idea came out. It's like, this was done in like basically a month, maybe 6 weeks, and it's on the back of a gas station, and it was done with youth in Corvallis. And the images here are, we're trying to convey the idea of time, this striated earth. And there's extinct footprints of dinosaurs and actual species that gone extinct in Oregon, going down into extinction. And here there's a human footprint here that we hope, we hope the humans go up into the future. So we did that mural. Then we did this mural in, also in Eugene. And so the murals prominently portrayed the date of the trial that was supposed to but the process of composition is often very network's unstable. Sorry, my connection's unstable. So anyways, the puzzle pieces are supposed to communicate that we're all the same piece of the puzzle. Here's another one we did. This is from, we did it the same year with a group of kids. Oh, I forgot how to do that. Anyway, and so the last one we did was oops, this one's too big. The mural at the school. And this one I'm going to try to center, and I made a mistake here. How do I get this small? I forgot how to get it small. Oh yeah. So this mural is, again, it was done very quickly with 200 kids. And here's the picture of the kids walking on the mural. This is the kids, you know, they get to walk on it and drop stuff on it and put all the color on, and then the statement helps the older kids do the fine work. And can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I wanted to just share this because again, the ideas behind this are, one thing I want to say too, this is at a school with a lot of bicultural kids from Central America and Mexico. And the butterfly is an important symbol for them of community because the migration of butterflies and the migration of people, right? So that's an important reason to have the butterfly in the mural. And we're trying to convey this concept of the imaginal cells that create a butterfly. And you can see the caterpillar is, in this small, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble from remembering how to do all the details, but you can see maybe, if I move the screen, okay, here we go. Here's the tiny little, over here is the bottom is an egg on a leaf, and then it becomes a gusano, a caterpillar. And now you see the butterflies here in Oregon, and the earth in the very middle. Why am I talking about this? Well, there's a lot going on in the image, but what's going on in the image relates actually to the consciousness of the kids. You know, the idea of our connectivity to the universe, to species, to the planet, and the power that that each child can have if they come into their full potential to change the world. So anyway, can we do something like this related to the idea of my project? I have no idea. I think so. Okay. I think I'm running out of time. My timer, I can't see my timer, so I'll just stop there and open it up for questions and comments. And maybe we should stop screen sharing. I need to go like this. Okay, like that. So I'm sorry if that got a little confusing.
I mean, I think you've got really wonderful like components of your project, but we need to like bring it together, and not that you can't do, you know, a bigger project like I was mentioning, but I don't know, have you ever thought of like, because these murals are for children and children participate in it, whether what you're saying about the ocean, you know, how the self and the door into ocean, whether the writing should be directed towards children maybe while they're doing the paintings for the children, you're sort of articulating that maybe as a story, for a children's story, or something that children can relate to, that idea of phenomenology, which is wonderful, but if you could bring it down to a level that is, then you could tie the children's painting to those ideas, but specifically directed at children. I don't know, it's just one sort of way of like, maybe you could bring the two components together. Maybe others have other ideas. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, no, maybe I'll respond to that too, because yeah, we also we've done some murals. They don't have to be for children, but there's funding systems here for to do murals, often in the public schools, which is where the funding has come from. So part of this idea might be to actually look for funding for the for a bigger mural for the general public. But so it could be for the general public, not necessarily for children. And also, though, the idea of trying to bring the ideas of communication skills and nonviolence, directly into the as a component of the mural process, the dialogue work that goes on when you're talking with the kids before they paint and after, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that could be a place to bring in this kind of work. Yeah, it's kind of big and crazy right now. Doesn't make much sense.
Kaka?
Congratulations, Kara. And can I make a question? Are you thinking about like inviting people to have a creative experience as connected to the climate and the environment and symbolic dimensions? Or maybe I got it wrong, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I guess here's something I haven't said actually is it's how so this is it's totally different tactic here. Michael talked a lot about the role of media, and all these images in our minds that are just really negative. So part of the mural work is the idea of addressing the environmental issue, but addressing it with beauty. And so the work is empowering the kids. The kids are afraid. They're scared to death, right? But if they can paint with colors, and just a simple painting yellow and blue and being part of something big that's beautiful. So you're with people, you're talking. There's a process of dialogue where you're talking about different aspects of the issue. But this is like saying, hey, people care about this, and we care about this. So that's the role of the mural. It's about, and it's kind of it's a heart supportive kind of activity for the youth, and it definitely needs to be expanded with better. I mean, in the sense what you guys are both talking about, the dialogue process of actually how do you empower them with, and so that is part of. We haven't got the funding to do that yet. We haven't. I mean, I know other people do that, but so yeah, that's an idea to move in that direction. Mm-hmm.
Like trying to stimulate other kind of affects and feelings in relation to this matter, to this question, right? In youth. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and it's the idea of stimulating hope and love for what we have and each other and our visions of the future, not just focusing on the dark side that's all around us.
Michael?
Wow. I think that's exactly the right approach, Kara. Someone once asked my son if I was a doctor, and he said, yes, he's a doctor of books. I'm going to mention a book. It's called Breakthrough, and the subtitle is From the Death of Environmentalism to a New Politics, something like that. It's by two guys. And that's exactly what they talk about, is that the last thing that we need is another scary approach to the horrors of what's going on. Excuse me 1 second. Hi, I'll be right there. Okay, I have to leave, but that was what I wanted to say. And so I will be, really, really happy to see this positive approach and drawing people into the beauty without overwhelming them, and maybe give them a little bit of a touch of what is there to be lost if we're not careful.
Oh, and then please clarify, I am trying, the idea is to try to bring in spiritual imagery, and perhaps I didn't say that, I forgot to say that. So bringing in the spiritual more, and making sure there's the human elements that are from our deep cultures. So that's what I would really like help with too from.
You'll need help because picturing spirituality is notoriously difficult. But we can do it.
Any other thoughts for Kara? I would suggest, just for your own, like, just not to get overwhelmed with all of this stuff. So is to just like, and I keep saying that to everybody, like, narrow the focus, like literally, like the way we looked at like one quotation, like if you look at one quotation out of this whole big book, it actually allows you to go to that bigger picture, but it allows you to go through with this very like deeper understanding also. So for you not to get lost, and it doesn't mean that you won't get to that, all of that, but for you to get to it in a much more sort of productive way, in a sense, is to narrow the focus. So just narrow it down, and you will actually find your way to wherever you need to go with it through that one pointed focus. So I would suggest, because it's in your mind right now, is to start writing, and to write without editing yourself or censoring yourself. Just write, just take it out in writing and see where that leads you. And then you can almost say, well, okay, I just want to write for my own sake, for my own clarity. And that's fine too, if you want to just submit that for ourselves. Or then you can say, okay, I'll create a blog, or maybe I'll connect this somehow, or it will connect me somehow to the murals. And then I can do something with it in some other fashion, or I can publish it, but I think just starting off, I would just write, just get it all out of your system in writing. And then you can come back and edit it. That's how writing is done anyway. So, I mean, you just write, and then you come back and you edit. And then you'll see what you want to do with it. So try that as a way to get to sort of, get it manageable.
Thank you. I know I need to do that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so Karen, it's you, and we're recording. So Michael said that he would then get comments back to Michael and Stephanie through the recording.
Okay, great, thank you. So every time I talk about prison work. Actually, my day job is for the federal government. I never talk about that, so I I prefer the volunteer prison work. I do a lot of teaching, and you can volunteer directly with the state. I live in Massachusetts, but for the past 10 years, I've been going through a nonprofit called Concord Prison Outreach, and it's been around for 53 years. And we have about 150 volunteers, and people teach anything from gardening to literacy courses to high school completion to what I do are the communication classes. So there's NVC classes and restorative justice and some anger management. What I proposed, and then I've kind of fine-tuned with Sephora's and Michael's help, I think, and suggestions and some ideas that I had, and speaking to friends, I wanted to redo the NVC curriculum that I have. Now that originally came from San Quentin, actually, but over the years it's been changed. And the way these work is, at least for this, it's the Rosenberg book has 13 chapters, and we buy the books. I got like $7,000 worth of books donated. So we give the students the books to keep. And we work through each chapter. There's 13 of them. And it's really used as a communication. They use it to communicate in phone calls with family or friends, if they still have any, with cellmates, with anyone, and to, just calm themselves down, because there's a lot in there about self-empathy. The course goes for 12 weeks. It's about a chapter a week. And the way we do the packets, so for 7 years I've been on the board. I chair the board. So I have a lot of, I can create whatever I want, but I also create it with an eye towards training other volunteers. So I have to make sure that there is material in there to train, like teachers' materials. So there's several packets. There's student handouts, which we'll do. Then there's the teacher version, right, that has notes and, just tips, things like that. And then there's a homework packet, and you do that for each week. So that's what I would develop. We haven't been in prison since the pandemic started, because we wouldn't want to infect, or the state wouldn't let us infect anyone, and vice versa. So and they're just beginning to put Zoom in. Unfortunately, it won't, of course, look like our Zoom. You don't get to see everyone on the screen. What will happen is the students will sit in a room and they will see us on screen. And so I've been thinking about how to do that. But the best feature, I think, is that we'll be able to show film clips, because I wanted to include Michael's film in one of the first classes. So my idea was, so at first I wanted to just redo the NVC packet and add nonviolence to it and change how we distribute it. Then I thought, no, I can keep that as an introductory class, because that's important communication. And it's also, I don't get to choose my students, that they're assigned. So there's directors of treatment in each facility, and they can decide who goes into classes. And this is a little easier. It's more basic. The class that I want to design to come after this would be more of a principles of nonviolence class. And there could be it could continue on. It doesn't have to be just these 12 weeks, because it could cover different topics. And I was thinking, so what's interesting when I take classes is that, again, like Sephora says, to focus, it's more focused. It isn't it isn't the whole book you try to cover, but it'd be very nice, I thought, to really focus in on a topic. I thought, and one topic that jumped out, and I thought it would be nice to start with for the 12 weeks, is compassion, right? And so they'll move from the communication skills to actually caring about other people and seeing themselves as part of humanity. There are people in there for a short time. When I do restorative justice, I've been working with people who are in there for life, and they're my favorite students, because they're very serious, right? They have nothing, like that's all, that is their life. That's their only hope, right? Is for someone to come and visit and to pay attention to the reading. So they always do the reading, and they're just very serious about the work. So I don't even know why I brought them up. I'll have to circle back to them. But let me see. Let me look at what I wanted to do with the classes. So we'd redo that. It would be the 12 weeks. I saw in Michael's books, especially in the beginning, the first couple of chapters are about compassion. So that's very easy to use. This has to get approved by the prison. So you have to be careful about what you don't want them to just say a blanket no because they don't like a chapter or two. So I think I'd end up purchasing the rights for, the ability to copy different chapters and use those chapters and then use other portions. So if you consider, I pulled out in one of Michael's books, it's the 5 practices of nonviolent living, points of personal improvement, just focusing on compassion for self and others. Number 1, avoid major networks. This is what we learned in the first class, right? Learn about nonviolence, take up a spiritual practice, be more personal with others, and find a project and get active. And I put in parentheses, what are you meant to do? I'm not sure if he said that, but I thought that that's a good way to get the class to think about a project, because that would be very stimulating to them, because they don't, this is where the lifers came in, because they, a lot of people when they get out of prison want to do work in the community, and they especially want to work with teenagers, and they want to say, this is what I did and this is where it led me and this is that kind of thing. Well, when people are in lifers, they're very they're depressed, right? That's the kind of the end of the line for them, and they know they'll be there probably forever. But they've started in one of the classes, one man realized that, well, he could consider the prison population his community. So he could work to help others, to mentor or to lead classes or to do whatever. So this will be geared. So when it's a project, and if it's with that population, it could really be with anybody, but so it would be geared towards that. So it's not only all the steps in nonviolent communication where you learn first self-empathy, because you can't care about other people unless you care about yourself. And most of them don't, right? They're very depressed and all their relationships have been broken and they don't really have anyone and they can't express themselves well. To self-empathy moves to empathy, and then which will move in the next class to compassion and thinking about humanity, and then studying nonviolence and studying Gandhian principles. I want to include other trainers, as last week, Tiago and Samuel mentioned, it's nice to have other trainers. It is people like that a lot. I've done training on the outside and people just like that because they, one trainer, they might be drawn to one trainer as opposed to another, and people have different viewpoints. So my friend Rama teaches chakra meditation, and that will be a portion of the class. Well, so she says you start out with 20 minutes and build to 45. So in that first class, there'll be Michael's film as an introduction. There will be her meditation as the beginning, but then each subsequent class, the meditation, just like we do, will come at the beginning of the class, but that will be incorporated. And the beauty of this too is that you get to, when you include different topics in the classes, then you can spin off whole classes, whole sets of classes from those topics, because people like them and they talk about them, right? And then they become popular, and that's how it sells the class to the administration. That works. The third person is we hired a new executive director in April. He's an African American man. He's about 50 or so, and he spent 15 years in prison when he was young. And he really brings a lot of, it's really nice to have him, because I really appreciate his viewpoint and his advice. And it'll be interesting to teach with him, because I'd like to see how people react to him saying, this is what worked for me. Because right now he teaches yoga and he teaches meditation, and he is the executive director. And that's one reason I really pushed to hire him, really convinced people, because I wanted the other students to see that we would stand behind our work, right? That it's important to us to employ people. He loves restorative justice, so I know that we'll add information on that, and we will conduct this in a circle, the way I'll talk more about that in a few weeks, the way restorative justice is conducted, because that also helps people. I know people in our restorative justice classes have used that when they've been in other meetings. So it's something everything you teach gets used in some other way. And that's really nice. He'll also do trauma. He does a lot. We'll add pieces of trauma. Kind of unlike Samuel and Thiago's class, we have a lot of time to do this, and people are usually exposed to this. They may not have heard about this. It would be important for them to know, and he can talk about that. We can expand that. The other part of my proposal was using it for other groups. And so one important group, and I thought this led into the discussion that we had in early classes about humanization and dehumanization, was to try to expand the training to the prison guards. So that would help. Not only it would help them, they're really very similar to the population that are in jail, in prison, because they often have the same level of education. They're under a lot of stress, and have all kinds of problems at home. There are high rates of suicide. There's all kinds of, so it's also a population that needs a lot of attention. They've said to us, it's hard to be a volunteer, because their frustration sort of comes out in an attitude where it's like, why are you bothering? Why don't you work at a food pantry or something? Why are you doing this? Or why are you doing that? They tend to kind of leave you alone in situations when they really shouldn't, and things like sort of passive aggressive acting out. So I think it would be nice for them to feel like they're getting a benefit, that we're not only helping this group of people, we're also more than willing to help them. And they'll also see what we're teaching. I mean, we're not teaching anyone to blow up anything or to be disruptive or to be disrespectful. It would be nice for them to learn this. And Sephora, you asked me if it would be the same classes, and I thought at first, yes, like sort of on principle, yes, we'll teach all the same things because it's important. You know, this is what they have, this is what you have. But I met with the executive director and Rama and some other friends last night, and we were throwing around ideas, and it's like, and that would be a hard sell just from, I mean, it's a very hard population to reach. So we've thought of ideas. They have a academy for new trainees, so it's easier to teach there. And maybe thinking more of the class would be more trauma, like we'd flip it. So there would be more of it would be about trauma and them getting along with family, and maybe more of the basic NVC, communication skills. And then some nonviolence added on. And if we can work up some kind of interest in that, then we can add more and more. We could also start with the administration. So if you train management first, right, they'll see what it's like, and they'll decide whether or not to push it down. We have a better chance of that than trying to convince everyone at once. So that's a little, so I'm adjusting that. I'm adjusting the class. I talked about rolling it out, definitely train other volunteers. And I thought about doing it for the public. I was hoping that Rama would want to do it with me at her temple. I thought that would be really neat. Like it could be like a discussion group. We'll see how I'll see. First, I'm going to learn the meditation. She's going to teach me, and we're going to work that in, and we're going to work towards the class. So that's my plan, to develop an additional class, to expand, to go start with principles of nonviolence 1. I was thinking of adding words like, you know, I don't think, at least at first, eventually they'll be familiar with ahimsa, but I thought, you know, soul force would appeal to them a lot if it was called, or heart unity. Words like that in the title, I thought would actually get people to sign up, because a lot of this is marketing too. You have to be kind of clever about the way you pitch things. So, yeah. And lastly, when I teach the class, because they're all adults, I invite them to help shape the class and to change things and ask them what they like and what they want to. So things can potentially morph or whatnot, but it makes it all the better. And eventually, hopefully, again, you need prison approval, but they will be able to facilitate, because that's also a goal, to have people teaching each other, because it's more empowering, really. So that's it so far.
That's great, Karen.
Thanks.
That's such a wonderful project. Yeah, I have to tell Michael to take a listen, because they do work with prison. I know Michael responded back to you, right? With his suggestions.
Yeah. He suggested the film. That's one good thing about Zoom, that I can show film. That's an easy way, because when you go into the prison, you don't carry. It's like a camping trip, and you don't bring anything with you. You just walk in, and you have to rely on them to have your handouts because you've emailed them. And showing a film could be something that would take 6 months to get approval on. It's very hard to figure out how to do that. But if it's on Zoom and they approve it, it's just part of it's embedded in the slide, or however I manage the technology, and it just clicks. We could have YouTube clips of Marshall talking about different things about NVC.
I think Zoom will probably make your life easier. I would think,
Yeah, although except for the funny, this is nice. It's going to be a little odd, but we can we'll do the best we can.
You won't see their faces? Is that what it is? Or?
I think we will. No, they'll be in a room. So we don't get all these simple, like they will be looking at a big TV screen that we're on. So they're sitting like they're in a classroom, which I imagine, okay, so they can line up in a circle and our screen can be part of the circle. We have a lot of exercises, because that's how you do NVC. There's lots of handouts and lots of, pairing up in 2s and 3s and talking. So if I were there, I'd be walking around the room and I'd be sitting with people and listening in and helping them. On screen, you manage it, we'll have them break off and I won't hear the conversations, but then everybody comes back to the circle and maybe people talk about, if they're willing to share, that kind of thing. You just have to be creative. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would suggest more focus, maybe more on Martin Luther King, because people are more familiar, that's local history, and Martin Luther King instead of Gandhi. Yeah,
Uh,
because that's
yeah.
more local history. A lot of people in prison are blacks, unfortunately, so they will be familiar with that history. So I think, yeah, change the focus from Gandhi. Gandhi can be there, sort of in the background, but I think Martin Luther King more in the foreground would be great to do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That will appeal to more. Of course, it kind of depends on who you end up in. There are a lot of well-educated people too. It sort of depends. But that's, again, it can be pieces. So just like I said, to flip the trauma, you can flip, it could be heavily King and with some Gandhi and see if there's interest. And what I get approved, at least the way I do it, what I get approved in writing, once I'm in the classroom, I can kind of say whatever I want. So I can expand on different themes and I can talk sort of off the slides, as long as it's appropriate. So I can go with, I can feel, what's going on in the room and expand as necessary.
And do you start off with some kind of meditation practice, or is that what you normally do? You actually
Start off with what? I can't hear.
meditation practice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And a lot of people, even in the NVC classes, when I was using the San Quentin, it starts off with 3 to 5 minutes of meditation. And I would often have one of the men lead because they've taken other classes. So they're familiar with it. I thought that chakra meditation would be interesting because I haven't heard of anyone doing that. So I thought that might appeal to them because it's different. And not everyone can read. It's hard to think about, thinking about them memorizing passages. I'm not sure. Again, it could be introduced as an idea and it could be taught to people who are interested. You have to see what the audience is like. But yes, it's after that first session where she's basically teaching, like, this is what it looks like, this is what we'll do. And then they practice and we spend a good amount of time. Then each subsequent class, it comes in the beginning, all the way up to 45 minutes towards the last few classes, which is fine. We'll just, work all the lessons that way. So it works out.
Okay.
I'm going to switch to speaker view. Everything's frozen for me now, naturally.
Okay, did you have something to say? Yeah.
Yes. I wrote in the chat, but just congratulations for everything, Karen. Really amazing, unbelievable for me. And I just wrote that, wow, this idea of offering at least part of that to the staff is so, like, I never thought about that. And listening to you, maybe it can help to dismantle the us versus them climate. I don't know. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, that would be big. It's hard to do. I mean, they've said no before, so it's something that we'd work on, but that's okay. We work on, we push things for months or years and it eventually comes around. So yeah, we'll push towards that. It would be nice.
Yeah, I know. And sort of teaching restorative justice is kind of also like resisting the system, but they won't know it. That's really great. Especially if you can teach the prison guards restorative justice, that would be great.
They love that. So right. So some of the people higher up have sat in the circles and talked about their experiences, and they really love it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard, once they don't know what we're doing. I think they're just more suspicious of what we're doing.
Right.
And once they participate, it helps them too, because it's really just, people are listening to each other, and that really feels good to people. And none of us are really, used to that, right? Except with our closest friends. So it's very nice.
Great, Karen. That's absolutely just a wonderful project. I really look forward to reading your syllabus, how you're going to change it around and towards the compassion component of it, and the trauma component. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be nice. Thank you.
Any other final thoughts? We are like really behind time.
Or I can't really hear you very well.
Oh, I'm saying, I'm sorry, but we're really behind time. So I don't know. Can you guys hear me now? Or
Yes.
I'll just sort of move forward and speak loud.
Karen, I wonder if it sounds like a loud wind blowing or something. I wonder if it's your speakers, because your voice was came across very loudly, very clearly.
Maybe Karen, could you mute yourself for a second? Is that better or?
Yeah, now it's gone.
Oh, okay. I think maybe it's coming from the mic. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for everybody for staying on, and we're gonna have two more, Kim and then Martin.
So I'm reading mine, so it's late and I'm sorry. And it's not going to be super stimulating, at least to hear. So bear with me. I would like to turn off my video and then share the screen if that's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a co-host. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so there are two parts to my presentation. And originally I was going to talk only about the second piece, but as I have been working on it, I realized that the second part won't really make sense without people understanding the first more in detail. And because the depth and impact of this work is so often misunderstood, I feel compelled to do this. So here it goes. So in 2017, my mentor and colleague, Ruth Beaglehole, and I started writing a compassionate guide to raising children with nonviolence, which is a parent educator guide or book now near completion. And although in the book we explain nonviolence through the concept of ahimsa and refer to ahimsa throughout the book, I plan to make some additions and revisions that will reinforce how this work is rooted in nonviolence and why that's significant in the bigger picture. And what I mean by that is that raising children with nonviolence holds a radical utopic vision of the future and can be a path to transforming the conditions from which so much violence emerges. In this work, we hold an uncompromising vision about the dignity of younger human beings and of what it means to love children well. And we extend that vision to all children, not just the children in our own lives. So in the book, I also plan to add and discuss the concept of satyagraha as it expresses so well this uncompromising vision. But I feel that I need to deepen my understanding of it in order to incorporate it effectively into the book. So in this guide, we are shifting in a sense from an old story about children to telling a new one. The language that adults often use about children can be dehumanizing, which makes it easier for us to justify punishment, humiliation, and manipulation in order to meet our needs, adult needs. The harm can be extreme or just the everyday oppression of using our power over children so that we can manage our daily lives. The need to control younger human beings prevails throughout our culture, and within the majority of schools and institutions that care for children, this is what we call the dominant paradigm approach to raising children. So raising children with nonviolence presents an alternative. Instead of viewing children as being wild, spoiled creatures that need to be trained and molded into our ideal, we recognize that they are whole human beings that deserve the same amount of respect and dignity that we give to adults, and we treat them as such. The practice of raising children nonviolence, whether we're talking about it in the home, in schools, or in any system or institution that is responsible for the care of children, is not an approach that says, let them do whatever they want. But it is a practice of supportive guidance where limits, which we understand to be an expression of a need, are held with empathy. And just as when we are engaged with an opponent, we do not surrender our agency, and we also respect the agency of the child. So in this practice, we listen to children because their opinions, ideas, motivations, and experiences matter. This is how younger human beings learn to develop the strength and confidence to listen to their inner voice, their authentic inner voice, and to feel their worth as a human being. Raising children with nonviolence is not a directive or a methodology, and it's not a child education curriculum. It is a guide to creating a daily reflective and intentional practice for us adults, and is intentional in that we actively resist doing harm, whether it's physical, emotional, and verbal. It presents a practice of caring for younger human beings that encourages adults to shift from a paradigm that emphasizes power over children to a model that advocates power with children. It's also important to note that this approach acknowledges that many of us come from situations and realities that are challenging and dangerous, and even dangerous. Some of us may fear for our children's safety every day, which makes protecting them the priority. We may feel that punishment or the threat of violence is the best way to protect them. And so if we make the shift to nonviolence, the question becomes, how can we keep our children safe while maintaining this practice of nonviolence? And this addresses the distinction between what we think works and what actually works, like, looking at the long term as opposed to, short term solutions. Is the child safer if they trust us or if they fear us? And for those that need a practical step, we've created a tool, POWER, with power, with supportive guidance. It's a flexible process that can help remind us that we do not want to do harm. And I can explain that later if you want. This practice is reflective in that instead of fixating on correcting children's behavior, we're curious about what it may be communicating. We're also looking at our own behavior. What are we modeling for our children? How are we responding to their anger, to their sadness, and their need for attention? We ask ourselves what happened to us as children that we are reacting with so much frustration and even rage. And when we invite participants to engage in this reflective work, we do so with an awareness that painful feelings will emerge. And this is why self-empathy is also a big part of this work. The goal of raising, so I'm gonna skip a lot of this of what it actually is, and I can talk about it more that if you want. So because raising children with nonviolence is a reflective practice and requires adults to shift the focus to themselves, it is potentially a process of self-transformation that can ultimately lead to social transformation. We've all heard the phrase, social justice begins at home, and I would instead say that social justice begins with how we raise and treat children, for they will grow up to be the adults who make choices and decisions that can affect entire communities. What sets this practice of raising children apart from other approaches is that we are also holding a bigger picture that recognizes that our choices, values, and beliefs can have a great impact, not only within our own families, but on a more global level. By planting the seeds throughout the series, we can encourage parents to shift from thinking, I want what's best for my child, to a perspective that collectively holds a vision that wants the best for all children, a perspective that acknowledges other forms of oppression that children may encounter in daily life, such as racism, classism, sexism, trans or homophobia, ableism, many of which will intersect. Equally important is to recognize and understand that these isms and biases and the underlying conditions that reinforce them can affect a parent's experiences and may have an impact on their capacity to parent as they would otherwise intend. So what this guide is a call to action to end the everyday violence and oppression of children. And each class ends with a section on social justice. So it's in these sections that I will incorporate more of what I've learned here, especially in these classes, especially in the discussions of transformative justice, gender violence, and economic inequality. In these sections is here where we invite participants, whether they be caregivers, parents, teachers, social workers, therapists, to connect how childism has an impact on the larger community. Because the transformation of how adults and institutions see children becomes an investment in the future. Younger human beings who are treated with dignity and raised with compassion can carry forward a practice of nonviolence into the next generation and become future advocates for dismantling institutional inequities steeped in childism. The Compassionate Guide to Raising Children with Nonviolence is a guide that traverses class, ethnic, cultural, and religious boundaries. And although we devote a good deal of the book to science, specifically neuroscience, mirror neurons, the limbic system, neuroplasticity, et cetera, it is not a scholarly work. With our growing community of educators, some of them whom have been practicing this for over 20 years, and we have served anyway, so it's not, so with our growing community of educators and participants in mind, we have written it with the intention that it be accessible for a range of education, language, and skill levels, and has the flexibility for educators to tailor it to their group or community. So this practice has been adopted by the Timoratau, a Maori-based education organization located in Whangaroa, Raglan in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and also in Chennai with a group called Parenting Matters. And again, I can talk about that more. So the one thing that we ask anyone who's teaching this work or bringing it into their community is that they hold fidelity to the principle of nonviolence and of ahimsa. And so then really quickly, the second piece of this project, which I would be doing on my own, so it is connected to the prison abolition and defund police movement. When I first became aware of this movement, my first reaction was, yes, of course, because this movement is calling for an end to punishment and retribution. My intention is to write an open letter to prison abolitionists to show how the practice of raising children with nonviolence is a human rights movement that can work in support of the prison abolition movement, not only in what it wants to destroy, but and more importantly, in what it wants to create. So I believe that abolishing the punishment of children is a path that can lead to the success of prison abolition. By abolishing punishment and other harmful strategies that attempt to correct and control, a practice of raising children with nonviolence can break the cycle of violence in the home, in the schools, in the child welfare industrial complex, in what we call the justice system, and instead replace it with a compassionate strategy of supportive guidance that can lead to structural change. And although I believe that raising children with nonviolence is fundamental to any transformative practice that resists the reproduction of violence, I cannot put forth this practice as a prescription. Instead, I present raising children with nonviolence as a movement that stands in solidarity with prison abolition. And I have a lot more to say, but anyway, so I'll stop sharing my screen and come back to you all. And anyway, that's it. That's what it is. Sorry, that was a lot.
Thank you. That was like so clear. It was just wonderful. Yes. It is late and it's really nice to have it like clearly just laid out. But I just like, it's so, you have a guide that you've already written, right? That's already been published? The first part that you were saying, or that you're also working on that?
It's near completion. So we're in the process of updating some of the brain information. So we have a chapter on the brain, and then I have, after having taken this course, would like to just incorporate more of what I've learned in this class with Michael and with you, and so just to kind of beef that up a little bit, and because now I feel like I came to the practice of nonviolence through taking these classes, 13 years ago. And so although I kind of was like almost immediately radicalized, it was only through this kind of, I hadn't really studied nonviolence, like the principles of nonviolence. So I feel like I'm more versed in it, and I can talk about it, and I can, offer ways to push back when people say like nonviolence doesn't work, or, however it comes up, that perception that nonviolence is weak and, is a mode of weakness or softness or whatever. So.
Right. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. And this guide, you said it was a series. Did you say it was a series?
So the guide. So what it is, it's a parent educator guide, and each chapter is a class. So it's a series of 10. It's a series of 12 classes. But it's also 350, 60 pages. So it's so you can't actually fit each chapter into a class. And we talk about that in the book. We have an introduction that was really kind of an orientation for parent educators. And Ruth is no longer doing trainings, but there are two people that we're working with that have been doing this work for a long time that will be doing the training in the in this guide. But there are also people who have taken the original guide. This is a really revamped, revised, anyway, but they've been doing this work for a long time in all different communities. In the prison community, I have a friend who all last year was doing this work in Tijuana, in working with people that were waiting, trying to immigrate to the US, and were stuck, in Mexico. Like, it's happening all over. In Spanish, it's been translated in the Maori language. It's currently now, I think it's going to be taught in Tamil, in Chennai. So yeah.
Okay, so the groups, they form themselves to teach. It's a private kind of.
It's an expanding community of people doing this work, and some are doing it just kind of following the guide, and some are taking it and that's how it's flexible, in the sense that it's not that there are a lot, it's a culture, it's also culturally responsive. Like, you have to tailor it to your community, right? Like, we wanted to be really clear about that sorry, it's really late, so I'm a little tired, I can't.
Sorry,
but we really thought, because Ruth goes back and forth, she's gone back and forth to New Zealand, that's where she's originally from, and worked in the community, and really moving away from, well, I guess, like Fernandez talks about this kind of Western knowledge system. Like, we're really aware of how, education and can sometimes re-traumatize people, can, like, open up a lot of it. Anyway, I can't talk anymore. Sorry. I can't talk if people, but I think yeah, like I said, as long as you are holding fidelity to the practice of nonviolence, to ahimsa, then you are doing this work, right? So, and that's really what it's all about. And expanding your vision of, like, like I said, this work really radicalized me. Like, it's not about my own kid, my own family. It's really looking at the bigger picture. And that's what I think really makes this work different, is we consider ourselves part of we are part of a social justice movement.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's right on. It's like, that's where you need to start.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anne, and then Ayatakshi.
Thank you, Kim. I just wondered where you are, what place you are.
Oh, I'm in New York. I'm in Ithaca.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's probably not late for some people.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to have a sense of place with you.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Your work will be of great value to everyone. I am just curious to know more about the power tool that you have mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. So is it like in somewhere that you have written? I mean, where can I read more about that power tool?
So it's an acronym that actually someone in one of the classes in New Zealand actually came up with, because we had we had other acronyms and they were all kind of terrible. And so it was really nice to kind of reconceptualize, like, the word power. And so, so the P stands for, and I can send this to you, or I can, put it somewhere, but the P stands for taking a pause, right? Like taking a breath, pausing, giving yourself some empathy for whatever it is, like, you want to scream in your head about whatever your child is doing or a child is doing. Self-regulation. So that's the key piece right there. The O stands for observe. So just kind of paying attention to what's going on. Not without judgment, without criticism, just, what's happening here that I can see, that I can hear. And then W is wonder, having some curiosity, like what may have happened during the day. Do we know the child's history? What's the backstory? Have they experienced trauma? Is there been a separation? Like, just having curiosity about what might be underneath, this big feeling or whatever's happening. The E is empathy. The R is restoring connection, is reflection, restoring connection, and then a reflective resolution. So after the P, the OWER, it's interchangeable. It doesn't have to be in order. It's whatever the situation calls for. So it's flexible. And so, but we just write it out, power, so that people can remember. And again, and parents, like, people who are working with children or parents, like, they like to have like what's the tool? Like, what's the thing that I can, have and write down or whatever. So, yeah. Because really, ultimately, what we're talking about is an emotional as well as conceptual shift. It's a really deep work, in the self. There's a whole chapter on our own childhood narratives and what happened to us, because that can help us understand what's triggering us. When something happens with our child, and we're like, wow, where did that come from? So. So it helps us to manage that.
One last question. Can I call, this power tool that you have mentioned, can I call these as methods also? Methods of resolving conflict in children. Can I call it like that?
What do you mean?
This power tool that you have just said,
Yeah.
can I also call this each component of the acronym that you have just mentioned? Can I call them as methods as well, like methods of resolving conflict or something? Can I call them methods?
Yeah, I think so. It's really more of an approach. It's not,
Okay.
I think we stay away from that word method, because it's not, we want there to be flexibility around it. So usually when you talk about a method, it's like, it's a step by step and it's a little more rigid. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kim. So you're going to finish the guide and you're going to do this article that speaks to prison abolitionists, giving them sort of the making it clear how childhood punishment is linked to that, right? So those are you have two projects, but they're connected, obviously.
Yeah, I want to be really careful about how I present this work in the prison abolition community.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want it to be prescriptive. And I think that the reason for that is where I am situated in the world, and who is leading and who is leading the movement, right? So it's like, it's so instead, I think to present it as, we are also a social justice movement, we are also a human rights movement, and we are standing in solidarity with you. And I want you to be aware of that. Just like kind of creating an awareness that this movement is happening and that we are with you. And it's hard because you know, raising children is still, it's a private, you know, thing, and it's, you can't really tell people what to do, right? So it's so you have to be respectful of that, and I notice that when I do talk about this sometimes with people, there's an assumption made that I'm like, that I am telling people that, well, only if people would just not put it in, so I want to be just so mindful of how I present this, and really, yeah. So I think if I frame it in terms of solidarity, then I think that I can do that.
Right. But you are at the end of the day sort of drawing, I mean, even if you don't present it prescriptively, you are sort of connecting the dots, let's say, between children's punishment and the prison industrial complex, or is that not the sort of?
Well, I'm making a connection, I think more is that we are like, so we also have, like, we're in alignment, like we have a radical vision of the political imaginary, like we have this utopic vision, right? That we are calling for cultural and institutional change, and that we are calling for transformative practices that encourage accountability when violence or harm occurs. So I think if I draw like a picture of what we are longing for, which is the end of punishment, and what we want to create, then I think that, like, then I hope like the connection is made, right? And you know, this work is really expanding in a lot of different communities. I have a friend, Leslie, who runs an organization called Latinx Parenting, and she has this, like, it's huge, like she's taken this work and just like set it on fire. Like it's amazing, like you know, what people are doing with this, and then, you know, like, and we talk about, like, you know, decolonize, you know, anyway, yeah, I think Martin needs to go.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Kim. That was great. And yeah, I know it's late for you over there, but you were still very articulate. So,
Thank you.
yeah, that's a wonderful project. Yeah, absolutely. Would love to be involved with that as well, actually. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about it, and I'm happy to share, and you know, yeah.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Martin, thank you for your patience, and you are definitely.
Well, it's been my pleasure listening to all these wonderful presentations.
Yeah.
So could I screen share too? Could you give me screen share? So does that exist now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, I have to shrink this down so I can see screen share. Okay. So can you all see this?
Yes.
This, I knew when I got exposed to Kate Rayworth's Donut Economics in a course I was helping facilitate before the last few years, that I wanted to know more about it. And when I took this course, I wanted to somehow combine this idea with what we're studying in nonviolence. So I don't know if y'all have had a chance to look at the two 15-minute videos that I sent out the links to on Kate Rayworth's Donut Economics. But this is sort of the essence of it right here. As you can see, the green area is the livable area for humans, where we all our needs are met, and we're not exceeding the planetary boundaries, which is the outer circle of the donut. The inner circle of the donut represents what our world is doing in its current economic framework, where the needs of people are not being met. And there are about 12 needs, as you can see around there, from energy to water, food, health, a voice in agency, peace and justice, political voice, et cetera, that there's a shortfall and there's an overshoot. And the whole idea is what will get us back in the middle. And what's the cause of this? And why is it that we've tolerated this? And is it something can it go on like this for a long time? Or now that we realize it, what has to be done? And as you can see, the overshoots are the violence that's being done to the planet on climate change and loss of biodiversity, the land conversion of burning the forests and creating fields to raise things, the fertilizer loss into the oceans, and more and more. And I suspect there's even more now with the plastics and so on. So I just want to throw this up to begin what I'm looking at doing for the project. And so I'll unscreen share, unless anybody has any questions about this particularly. But this has been sort of an inspiration for me to look at that. And I've realized as we've been taking this course that really a lot of what it's talking about with that model to me is nonviolence, because it's nonviolence to people who are in the middle and don't even have their social needs met because of the way economies are set up, not because they don't want to be in the donut. It's because of the situation that exists and exceeding the planetary boundaries. So I have just I've been mulling this over for several weeks, and I've just been having a hard time pulling it together exactly what it is I want to do. And so I've come down to this. I'll read you sort of what I've written so far and how my ideas are starting to gel, I think. Our world is at a place in time now where the convergence of the effects of the old story by which we have lived threaten to destroy us. Implicitly and explicitly, this current way of being supports violence against ourselves by distracting our attention for what really is important, violence against each other, and violence against nature. So in response, my project involves promoting constructive, life-affirming ideas that can contribute to the adoption of the new story. And in particular, I want to focus on how Kate's model, donut economic model, and other newer economic theories overlap with and support the emergence of the new story. And in what ways those models overlap with nonviolence, and where the two might even be more congruent. These new theories and nonviolence might even be more congruent than we see, or not. For example, there's no explicit mention in the donut theory about where war comes in or war and peace come in. And so I'm curious, should we be talking about war and peace and nonviolence when we talk about economic theories? And I want to explore how and if our current economic model of capitalism contributes to the continuation of the old story, the continuation of the violent model of power over, and contrast it with the newer economic theories. So my starting premise is that, yes, that the new economic models are more reflective of the principles of nonviolence, as opposed to the way our capitalism is currently being practiced. And the principles that come through from the donut model, for example, of realizing that we are all one people and we all want to be in the donut, that we are our brother's keepers. What are we doing that's keeping people out of it? And that no one is really safe unless the basic needs of all are met. And that we respect nature and we don't exceed the planetary boundaries. So it has a lot to do with nonviolence, I think. I expect my readings and conversations will broaden and alter my premise. And maybe the question I'm trying to ask is, how can I really effectively communicate this information, or dare I say, these truths, and compare and contrast the newer models like the donut model with capitalism to a broad and diverse audience without alienating people, so that it's a shocker? And so can we talk about all these things at once? As far as people are concerned, from my experience, people confuse capitalism with democracy. and they confuse that, thinking that these are the same thing. And so if you're attacking one, you must be attacking our way of government. And what are you, an anarchist or a Marxist, or where do you fall? And so that's a challenge in and of itself. I've been in, I plan on informing my continued reading about this with, of course, Michael's book, The Third Harmony, but also, and Kate's book, The Donut Economics, but also another book written by a person I know, Anthony Biglin, called Rebooting Capitalism, which looks at all aspects of our failures, the current economic model to fail, is how it's failed us. Also, David Corden's book, The Great Turning, which also talks about something very similar, and how we are coming around to a new way of being. And then this book by Cecilia Elworthy, the business side of Business Plan for Peace, which also goes into economics and really very simple details, but practical. And I don't know much about, and I'm learning about the Institute for Economics and Peace, which was started by Steve Kalela, who has written a book called Peace in the Age of Chaos. His name is Killelea, and I'm looking forward to exploring that one more. I don't know much about that, but it seems like it fits in from everything I've read so far. So I started off doing some writing, and I don't need to read this, or tell you, but basically, I think it would be, well, first, let me just say, how will I get this information out, and what do I plan to do with it? So I guess that's what I'm asking myself now. And what's the purpose? Well, one of the purposes is I want to know more about it, and I want to look at how the economic models proposed by Milton Friedman in the 60s and 70s, and another guy named Gardner, if I have that right, who basically said that if you got a lot of money, that if you gave it, if you invested it in something public, a public work, that was really would destroy the system, because you'd be messing up the free market economy. And it was these kinds of people that influenced Ronald Reagan, our president, in the 80s, to advocate for trickle-down economics, which didn't work, but it basically made the rich richer and the poor poorer, and helped to destroy the middle class even further. So I start off by looking at what the old story has done to us economically, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I think it's important, if I was going to present something like this, to talk about what our current economic model is doing and how, and what are the effects are that are obvious, that we all can see if we just open our eyes right now. The gross income inequality, the extinction of species, the loss of habitats, and of course the effects on climate change that I don't need to reiterate now. And then I would plan on going on talking about the contrasting and comparing newer economic models with our existing model, and looking at the pros and cons, and talking about it that way. What I hope to contribute would be a further way of strengthening the new story, strengthening nonviolence by focusing on an economic impact of nonviolence, not necessarily the cost of war. And I know Michael has talked about you don't just show people what war costs to get them to change. You need to change the heart. You have a change of heart. You have to have a spiritual transformation. And that's not what I'm talking about so much as the current system we're living in, an institutionalized system, not of war, but of everyday life, of movies and shopping, including all of that, and much of which is invisible, and we just don't understand, we take for granted, or we're not really led there by the current media. So how would I get this information out? Well, the ways I'm looking at right now would be, I joined Rotary a few years ago because I was interested in their motto of service above self, and I know that they wanted to reinstitute a peace committee at that particular one. And there is an organization called Rotarian Action Group for Peace, which of Rotary's 35,000 chapters around the world, they are always looking for presentations. And if I could develop something that could be put online so that any Rotary Club in another place could access it and then make a presentation to their own Rotary Club, that would be understandable, practical, and wouldn't turn off the Rotarians, because we all know that Rotarians started off as business people, and among business people, there are often many who are conservative and some who are liberal. And so it would be a way to couch it that would be a way of introducing the ideas in a way that would not offend and immediately have people turning them off, if you see what I mean. Another way I thought of doing this was when I helped facilitate this course called Seeing Systems that's put out by Eco Challenge in Portland, Oregon. It's a 6-week course that has 6 chapters all about peace, justice, and sustainability. And I've actually, if you don't, we've co-facilitated this with Anne and Kara, by the way. So we've done that together a few times. And I've talked about writing a 7th chapter that would be much more geared to nonviolence and perhaps even the economic system the way it is. So that's another way, or maybe even just writing, actually doing another syllabus, a shorter syllabus, maybe a 2 or 3 week course. But to me, Rotary is such a expansive organization with such with tentacles in something like 160 or 170 countries. So it seems like it would be a way to go if I could develop something over time that could be used and spread. So that's kind of my idea, and I'd love some comments, because I know it's kind of expansive, and right now I'm in the exploration, studying and learning a lot more about it. And I think I'll probably be narrowing my focus as I learn even more about it, because it's going to get bigger.
That's such an important topic, Martin. That's like huge. That's hugely important. The economics of nonviolence. What would that look like? And there's not been enough work done on that. So that's a great avenue of exploration. And I think perhaps for you, perhaps just for this project, I think just do it as a research project. Maybe not even have like, what am I going to do with it yet? Because once you do the research and do some writing for yourself, just to clarify, maybe many things will come out of it. An article that you could publish, or presentations you could do orally, and so don't so much worry about that right now, because this is not only an important topic, but not enough work has been done on it. So just focus on that, on the research aspect of it, and getting it clear in your own head. What would a different economics aligned with the principles of nonviolence look like? And so even when you're presenting it even to maybe even business people, or Rotarians or so on, don't come at it from like a critique of capitalism, but just presenting an alternative view. Because the moment you say capitalism, you start they sense that you're critiquing it, they'll just shut down and not hear anything further. So sort of come at it from the back door, if you will, and come at it from like, how could what would the shape of a new economics look like? Like, you could just do it that way, and you're maybe not even bring in nonviolence immediately, depending on your audience. For yourself, of course, you want to do that, but then later on, once you're doing presentations, you can tailor it according to the audience, to get the most to get people to listen to you before you say words that'll sort of shut them down, kind of thing. So I think for you, and I think it's really important just overall, is to get clarity on what a new economics aligned with the values of nonviolence. What are the shapes of that? I think that would be a great project just in itself, and just write something up for us to read, which later on you can edit for publication, or oral presentation, whatever you want to do with it. I think while you're doing the writing part of it, it'll become clearer for you as well. What do you want to do with it? So, so I think, and do you know about the Schumacher Center for Economics? The Schumacher Center?
No, I don't.
Oh, so look that up. The Schumacher Center. They also deal with alternate economic, and a lot of it is very aligned with nonviolent principles. And so it's the Schumacher. I think that's what it is. Schumacher Center or something like that. If you
Okay.
just Google that, then I just sent it to Stephanie. Hold on. I meant to send it to everybody. Okay. That and also to I'll ask Michael, or you can email him directly to give you some references for people who are working on nonviolent economics.
Okay.
So to read something that is actually out there written about nonviolent economics, so that maybe somebody's already done the connections for you, so you don't have to sort of go back into something that and you can take off from there.
Okay.
And the final thing that I'm sort of thinking of is what inspired Gandhi's economics on nonviolence was the book by John Ruskin, and the title of that book is eluding me right now, but I will email you as soon as I think of it. But he translates that into Gujarati. And that quote that I read you about enlightened anarchy, if you
Yes.
remember, I sent you
Yeah.
the last portion of that quote. No one will be first and no one last, or something like that. That comes from that book, John Ruskin's book. So that was very influential on him. And John Ruskin was a socialist, a British English socialist, also a very famous art critic. But he wrote this really beautiful book on alternate kind of socialism, nothing to do with Marxism, more sort of it gave impetus to the arts and crafts movement in England, and it's a beautiful book. There isn't like a tangible economic system, but there is a huge outline of what an alternate economics could look like, kind of thing. So
Thank you.
I'll email you the title once I
Terrific.
yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Ayatakshi?
Martin, I just want to say that in India, there is a community called Jain Business Community. And Gandhi ji was also part of the Jain community, from where he has got some ideas about non-violence economics. So there are some work done, but now I don't exactly remember the name of the books, but I can email those to you. Probably that will give you a few insights on non-violent economics.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to find the book, but yeah, Kaka, go ahead.
Yeah, Martin, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Congratulations. Wow, yeah, just incredible, amazing, and I have no words. And I'm so happy that you are doing that. And I just remember I wanted to ask you, maybe you know Sacred Economy by Charles Eisenstein.
I don't. Sacred Economy?
Yeah.
Sacred, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I don't know very much. I know Charles Eisenstein more from the things he shares about the conversations he was having about trauma, collective trauma. But I know he's very involved, or I kind of don't know, but I have an impression that maybe it might interest you.
Yeah, I'll look into it. Thank you. Thanks very much.
It is a it is a much needed work, Martin. Nonviolent economics is a much needed work because the extent our country, I mean, our world is moving towards consumerism. I think this is the need of the hour.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, the book, Martin, the book is called Unto This Last by John.
Unto this
Unto This Last. Let me-
LAST?
I'll type it in here. Hold on.
Okay. This last, oh, very good. Okay, right, Rushkin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Martin, can I share one more thing?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's also in relation to Charles Eisenstein and sacred economy, maybe a possible link between the new story, the old story, and the new story that you were like reflecting on. Maybe because he talks about the age of transition and for the new, the great turning. Sorry, I'm not able to explain, but it was just a link between, a possible link between nonviolence principles, economy, yeah, spirituality.
I'm looking forward to looking up that book. Yeah.
He's got a big website and a lot of stuff on his website too. Charles Eisenstein. He's quite popular. Like he's not an economist as such, but he's sort of like a popular, a public intellectual, more like that. And so he also talks about news stories and sort of the idea of separatism and individuality and all of that. Oh, Anne is what is that? Sorry, I can't see that.
It's called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible by
Is that
Charles.
Oh, okay.
That's Charles, yeah. Mhm.
Please text the name of the book.
Pardon?
There's a lot of YouTube videos and stuff on him too. You can just sort of Google him and a lot of stuff will pop up.
Okay.
So that's absolutely wonderful. All of the projects. I mean, I'm just like blown away by all of you guys. I really am. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Every single one has got like this. Yeah, it just does my heart so much. It gives my heart so much hope. Yeah, it's so much hope. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for just being who you are. That's just wonderful. Yes, absolutely.
So for this class has been, I must say, I just said to my friend, the best class I've ever taken in my lifetime.
Thank you.
So I really am stunned and astonished and grateful for what you brought to us and all of you in this class. It's really been incredible.
Thank you, and thank you very much for that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I want to say something.
Please.
Like reading about nonviolence in a book and actually feeling nonviolence is very different. And I think in this class, I could feel the essence of nonviolence with everyone around me. And that will actually heighten my PhD work, and PhD journey is a very loner's journey. There is no one to collaborate, talk to, share ideas. So this group was a kind of a forum for me where I got an opportunity to actually talk and express my ideas in a way. At times I was maybe a little emotional, so please pardon me for that. And I mean, I will miss every one of you, and I'm looking forward for November class, which Stephanie has sent an email. And I hope that we all stay connected in this journey of nonviolence.
I
Yeah,
hope so too.
yeah, I hope so too. I think the aim is to create a circle and then keep expanding the circles and overlapping circles. And yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, and take care. And I look forward to your projects and staying connected. And yeah, we should just keep doing things together. Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you for your patience for staying for so long. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Hugs, hugs, hugs for all of you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Be safe. I'm already missing you all. See you